introduce you to our first speaker of this evening. She's known to us as Reverend Marquita Pierre, and she's the senior minister at the Alaska Center for Spiritual Living in Anchorage, Alaska. She will go to any lengths for her ministry. Now, what I know about Marquita is that she's delivered many rousing presentations. She's designed and coordinated and implemented a host of educational programs and inspirational seminars. But what I also know is that she has an incredible gift in her voice, in singing, which gained her the title of one in four from 2006 Alaska Divas. So we're gonna have a diva on the stage, okay? That's just her resume. What I can tell you is that you are about to experience a powerful sister who's gonna lay it down so deep that who you are right now is gonna be a different person when you walk out of that door. So please give a warm welcome to our beloved Reverend Marquita Pierre.
Good evening. How y'all doing? That wasn't loud enough for me. How y'all doing? Oh, thank you, because I like some feedback going on, all right? So first I want to give thanks and honor to, where's Dr. Kathy? I know you're here. Thank you for all that you've done, really and truly. And to Dr. Ken and Dr. John, thank you for what you are so about to do. And thank you all for being here this evening. So I am from Alaska, we don't do that, right? And I was born here. I'm from New Orleans, the Ninth Ward. So those of you who are about to go to the Ninth Ward and build it up, I thank you. Thank you for building up my hometown. However, and 30 years in Alaska. And every summer I fall in love with it. And every winter I go back to the question my brother asked me. He said, "You don't like the cold. What are you doing?" And at that time, I didn't have a good answer. But every winter, especially this winter, it's been very difficult because in the month of January, check this out, in the month of January, the average temperature was 2.7 degrees. And so every day in January, I was asking, what am I doing here? But I tell you what I've done in Alaska. I've had many adventures. And the most precious is my spiritual adventure, my spiritual journey, and I want to share a little bit of that with you. The title of the talk is The Depth of Your Core, but we are here connecting as spiritual leaders. What I'd like to impress upon you is that a spiritual leader isn't just a title or a leadership position, and I love our leaders and our new leaders. This is just wonderful. And it is not just the talents and the skills that you've gained so that you can be a leader in this world. No, our teachings go a little deeper than that. I would like to impress upon you that your spiritual leadership, and everyone in here is a spiritual leader, comes from the depth of your core, and that in that, you have no idea of who you are. Because God is infinite. And therefore you are infinite. The depth of your core is infinite. It reminds me of like the ocean. I liken ourselves to the ocean. You see, you look out on the ocean and the waves, sometimes they're calm, sometimes they're really rough, and there are storms going on, just like our lives. In our lives, sometimes it's calm, sometimes get a little rough, and then sometimes some storms be coming, you know. And you look out and that's what we see. And in this room, if you were to look around, that's what you would see. You would see us in these bodies. But you see, who you really are, the depth of your core is also like the ocean underneath the waves. It goes deep. And in the depth is a calm and a peace that surpasses your understanding. In the depth of your core is this infinite wisdom and intelligence. And what I really want you to understand is that you're not just to hear the words that I'm saying this evening. I want you to feel it with the depth of your core. You see, because when you look upon your neighbor and you say, yes, she's a spiritual leader, what happens to us as religious science from time to time is that we think about it mentally. Not to discount the mentality, and here we go again. When we are talking about diversity, reaching out, letting our youth do their thing, let's not talk from just our mentality. Let's do it not only just from the heart, but I want you to discover the depth of your core, because now you're talking about your whole being engaged when we're talking about diversity, when we're talking about moving forward. Okay, the whole being, the part of you that you haven't even discovered yet. Let's get clear that as we rise in age, as we move along our spiritual journey, let's get clear what this is about. We are to explore, to uncover, and discover God the infinite. Now think about that. If you're to discover God the infinite, when can you ever stop? And yet we look upon each other and say, I know you. Really? Sisters, brothers, you're still discovering yourself. Okay? It's really what we're doing. Now, so that's us. So as we move into this idea of spiritual leadership as uncovering the depth of our core, the same thing is happening when we are talking with each other, learning each other, trying to understand each other, and we talk about diversity. Now we've really opened up a can of worms here. Great worms. Have you been eating worms? They taste great. I'm kidding. So what happens is we have a tendency to believe that we know each other by the acts that we do. And I would like for us to no longer look at each other by the acts that we do, but to continually move within our own selves and ask the question, who really is this great being of light? I had the pleasure of going to Brazil a few years ago. My youngest son, was in an exchange program, and after a few months, I decided I would go see him. So I hop on the plane, and I get there, long flight, but I get there to find that I'm in a foreign land, and I have not done my homework on studying the language or the culture. So in our family, I have decided that we would not do dictatorship. And as we were growing our children, they thought it was a democracy. Not. We have coined a new term. It's called parentocracy. I asked my son, I said, son, what does parentocracy mean to you? He says it's where the parents make a decision in love. They make the decisions in love. Very good. Well, I get to Brazil, and I don't know the language, and the roles reverse. Oops. I don't know how to speak the language. I don't know the culture. I don't know anything. And my son, I watch come forward as an adult. He was 17 at the time. He took over. And what I discovered was there was something in the depth of his core that was a leader. When we prayed, he was the one who took charge and prayed. He knew how to do it in Portuguese. He knew how to do it in English. He prayed. I watched him teach me of, Mom, take off all of your jewelry when we leave the house. When we get to the dinner, you can put it back on. What? Mom, pay attention. Okay, all right. And so I asked my son, I said, so what is this role we have going on? He says, oh, we've got another word. Youthcratic. Youthcratic. So our roles reverse, and so we have that straight now. And when he's in America, it's parentocracy, and when I'm in Brazil, it's youthcratic, which is fine. But so I watched him come forward as leader. And so for those of us who are the young adults and our children, absolutely the children are our future. They're also our now. Our now. That which we call spiritual leadership, at the depth of their core, that is the wholeness of God. And it's in them now. We are to pay attention. Pay attention. And so it was many years before that, so I'm going to take us back in time just a little bit, that I had to discover a deeper part of my own core. You see, life, as we know, brings us challenges, which I just find fascinating from time to time because I don't want to go through it. However, we have this saying at least down south we did for a while, I'm going through. Anybody heard that? I'm going through. Anybody use that? I'm going through. Going through it. I would like for you to repeat after me. I'm no longer going through it. I'm growing through it. You got that? All right, let's do it. I'm no longer going through it. I'm growing through it. All right? And that is what our organization is doing now. Okay, for a while I caught myself saying, our organization is going through this cultural change. No, we're not. We're growing through something magnificent. But see, I had to learn that in a different way and how to be one with one. Instead of just in my mentality and even with my heart, how to be one with all people in a moment's notice. But I had to do it kind of the hard way. So in 1998, I was the youth director for our church, and I took some teens to Southern California for camp. And in camp, as those of us who are youth directors have discovered, is that you don't sleep. You don't sleep much. You go through all these wonderful activities, and everybody becomes one. It's just wonderful. We get back to Alaska, and I took 2 sons down with us, and I noticed one of my sons was not sleeping. He's still excited. I thought, well, that's kind of nice. He had his little girlfriend go down there thinking, all right, that's the girl thing going on. But within 24 hours and then 48 hours, he's still not sleeping. On July 4th, we woke up to find my son speaking in gibberish, being incoherent. Didn't really know what's going on. We take him to the emergency room, and just so you know, I have permission to tell this story. We take him to the emergency room. After a while, the doctors look at me and say, do you have mental illness running in your family? And I'm like, no. I call my ex-husband's sister, and she's in tears, and she says, yes, it runs in our family deep. All the boys in our family, one at least, has it. I am floored and bewildered. I don't understand this. And they don't know how to help my son. So it took 6 years before there was a diagnosis. And in that 6 years, my son, I call it lost his life. You know how you gather, you're doing well, you're working, and then your life goes into turmoil. And he loses everything, apartments, money, clothing, And then I watched something miraculous happen. Every time he lost his life due to the illness, he'd get it back. He'd get it back. Where does this strength come from? How does someone lose their life over and over and then pick it up again? I don't know. So after the 6 years of finally them diagnosing him, now it takes another 4 years for the correct medicines to be discovered. He continues to lose his life and get his life back again. What I remember the doctors saying is that the support that he had in his family helped him get through this. And what I interpret it as, the Science of Mind teachings helped all of us get through this. These teachings in the toughest times of life are not to be discarded, not to go, oh, let me just repeat some affirmations and it'll be okay. No, we are to not take this just into our mentality, but we are to live it in our whole being. You see, the depth of your being knows every truth that Ernest Holmes has come through us with. Okay, it's already there in you. We are here to listen deeply. Not just when the times are good, not just when they're okay, but when they are gut-wrenching hell, that's when you lean into the teachings. That's when we lean. The infinite is within each and every one of us, and it was in my son. Now, so we've got 10 years of going through what I call the darkest night of the soul. And then it takes another 2 years before we have some normalcy in our lives. Now, what's amazing to me is that the whole family got to go through this. And guess what? Our teachings absolutely moved us into areas that I did not know anything about. And then when it was kind of getting okay, I decided to, now I was a practitioner at this time, but I was in conflict because I'm going through hell, and yet there's a divine order to everything. I was in pain and in conflict. How does this work? So as a practitioner, and then I decided to go into ministerial school, and even in ministerial school, we're still going through episodes of the mental illness. And I go to Tacoma, Washington to continue my studies in ministerial school, and I'm in the church, and I go on this one particular day for lunch. And I'm standing in line getting ready to get the lunch that I had, and there's a man in front of me and the cashier, and the man is taking a very long time to complete his order. He only had a couple of things. I'm standing in line, and you can see the cashier, she's getting irritated, and the people behind me, or you can hear them starting to huff and puff and all this stuff, and I'm standing there, and all of a sudden it hits me. The man is mentally ill, and he's having a hard time writing out the check and just taking a while to do it. And I realized in that moment, my fear of another was gone. My fear of somebody being different from me was gone. You see, before my son's illness, I shied away from those who were mentally ill. I was in fear of those who were older than me. I had all kind of stuff going on. But especially the mentally ill, because it's something you can't necessarily see and you don't necessarily notice. And people label people with mental illness, all kind of labels. I used to do it too. But in that moment, not only did I notice that the man was having trouble, but I noticed he was me and he was my son. He was my son in a different body, but still my son. And so I stood there loving him and thanking him silently and watching everybody else get frustrated. Then when it came up time for me to do my order, the cashier's just apologizing to me. I said, no, you don't understand. It's all in divine order, and it's perfect, absolutely perfect. And I could see her just kind of smile, and I did my order. And as I watched him walk out, then the tears began to flow. I cried the rest of the afternoon because I got it. Sometimes the challenges that come through in our life shift us at the core of our being so we can discover what that core is and what's there, so that the compassion can come through, so that the wisdom can come through, so that we can let go of just thinking about oneness in just the mind, in just the heart, but that we feel it and we resonate with it in the core of our being. Look around the room for a moment. Is there anyone who's really separate from you? No. Look around the room for a moment, and the infinite that resides in you resides in them. There is no separation. It just looks like it. We have coined the term diversity because we use language to describe things. but I would like for us to consider that infinite and the teachings, wonderful teachings. We don't need to bring people into the teachings. We need to discover the teachings that are already there within them. You see, it's funny how we use language, and our own language separates us from people. Okay, all right. So let us learn to embrace the teachings at the core of our being. Let us listen long enough. Be silent and listen. Because we say this, all that you need is within. It really is. But we must listen. We must listen. And then allow the life experiences to help us explore even deeper. It's there. So we are not going through. No, we are growing through to discover the infinite, the eternal. It's here. Yes? Yes. And so we do this through our spiritual practices. And in this darkest night of my soul, there is one particular practice that I did to continually remind me of who and what God is and what this experience was about, and to keep me connected to my son during that dark night of the soul. It's singing for me. And I sang a song, and I give thanks also to Ricky Byers and Reverend Michael Beckwith, because I was singing constantly, day in, day out, every day, I walk in the love of God. But instead of I walk, I put my son's name there so that I could remember. So that I could remember that he walked in the love of God and that everything was truly in divine order. And we were growing through the experience to deepen who and what we were so that we could live a spiritual life. Yes? Yes, I'd like to sing that song for you now.
Take a breath with me, please. It is good to be alive. And I thank you for allowing me to be with you this evening in this way. There is a power, a presence, one life of all, and no other power can exist outside of the infinite one love.
There can only be
God's love. Oh yes, I know that I walk. Oh yes, I walk in the love of God. Oh, there is a wisdom, a knowing, a loving, and a truth. Whatever you need to know will come in God's way for you. Just say,
until it's shows.
oh, I'll pray. I won't move until I know, oh, that I walk in the love of God. For the power and the glory and the love of God is, I can see that it's
Everywhere,
I can feel that it's
everywhere,
and I know in my heart the power and the glory and the love of God is
everywhere,
Can you see that it's
everywhere,
Can you feel that it's
everywhere.
Do you know in your heart? Yes, I walk love of God. There is a power, a presence, one life of all, and no other power can exist outside of the infinite. Oh, one love.
There can only be.
It's God's love. Oh, yes, I know that I walk. Oh, yes, I walk in the love of God. For the power and the glory and the love of God is
Everywhere.
I can see that it's
Everywhere.
I can feel that it's
Everywhere.
and I know in my heart the power and the glory and the love of God is
Everywhere.
don't move
Everywhere.
till you see that it's
Everywhere.
be still
Everywhere.
till you see that it's
Everywhere.
praise God
Everywhere.
till you see that it's
Everywhere.
till you know in your heart, yes, I walk in the love of God. There is a power, a presence, one life of God, and no other power can exist outside of the infinite. There's one love.
There can only
Oh,
be.
God's love. Oh, yes, I know that